do this. I'm gonna actually talk about things. Hey friends! A lot of people have asked me over the past almost, I think it's about 2.5 years now, why I decided to write my webcomics, what they're based off of, and stuff like that. Since this year, it just so happens I made a goal for myself to be more open about things in general. And I think that there's a lot of things that have happened in my life that I should be more open about in order to help other people who have been through similar things. So I think this is the perfect opportunity. Firstly, however, there's a lot of extremely complex background details to this entire story. So I thought I might as well just give you a play-by-play. I'm gonna have to break it into parts basically because I mentally cannot handle this. I don't know if you're similar to me, but I tend to suppress things after it becomes a little bit too traumatic, and I've learned from therapists or doctors and people like that that is a common coping method, especially in terms of when you have PTSD symptoms. I'm gonna have to explain this in order to explain why I wrote these comics, because a lot of it has to do based off of personal experience. And I've had a bit of an unusual life path, I would say. Not that it's the most unusual, but it's unusual to the point where people have trouble relating to me in terms of these situations. I have two more disclaimers. One is that I'm going to talk about medical things, and it's for the sake of a story. So that means I do not want advice, and I just want to remind you to never give or take advice about medical things on the internet. It's just not something that you do. And I'm not going to respond or read anything that you suggest to me. That's not what the point of this is. And then also, just as a brief background, if we've never met before, if you've never watched any of my videos, hi, I'm River. I consider myself on various parts of the LGBT spectrum. I was born female and transitioned to male, so I'm a transgender male. A lot of people say they identified as female when they were born, but I'm just simplifying things here. And I also am attracted to people regardless of gender, so I wouldn't mind dating anyone as long as I feel attraction to them. I'm not going to make a decision based on their gender identity. So, I'm gonna get into this. Okay. I'm gonna just start at the core of why I wrote Chronic Nightmare Syndrome, because it's really important to why I wrote What Sexual. So if you're here to learn about why I wrote What Sexual, this should still be interesting. As I was growing up, I didn't really ever understand things about myself, I think. In terms of LGBT things, I knew what a lot of things were. I just didn't understand anything about, gender identity. I thought that I needed some type of certificate in order to be considered that. So I have a repetitive pattern of doubting myself, which is something that I really worked really hard on. And I also have a history of chronic illness. And that is a very obvious reason why someone would write Chronic Nightmare Syndrome. It's about chronic illnesses. So my two main characters, they have various chronic illnesses, and I wanted to make a story that was kind of like a conspiracy theory about the US government and medical system, because I've had quite a bit of experience with it, and not in a very good way most of the time. So this is where it starts to get interesting, and that's why I'm swallowing too hard. I think as I was growing up, I regressed further and further into feeling worse and worse. So I think I might explain that in a later video, but just as a summary, I don't know what it's like to feel healthy. It's not something that I'm bothered by. A lot of people who have chronic illnesses regressed into some type of illness. So they had what you would say is a healthier life, and then either like an infection happened or something happened, like car accident or something triggered something to give them whatever illness that they have, which is terrible. And a lot of those people end up feeling like their life was ripped away from them. Like they have the distinction of how life was before and how it is now. And that's the beginning of where I have trouble relating to people. These people who have the distinction and then fell ill, basically, that's just how I'm describing it. I can't fully relate to them because I don't have the like charged emotion of like I want to go back to how it was before, because how it was before for me wasn't all that different. Like that's not my end goal. Chronic illness is already isolating, but I got to the point to where right before I decided to write CNS, I was isolated to the point where I didn't really have any friends. I've always been someone to like meet people online, like friends online, and talk to them. And it's, I mean, you think that you'd want to have friends, like no matter how they are, but I think that's just not the reality of the world sometimes. I don't blame those people. I don't really blame myself. It was just the situation. I graduated high school. I took a year off, but it ended up being like 2 years off. And then I basically didn't think I would live past the age of 18. I didn't see a future. I didn't see a way out. I didn't think I would live through the illnesses, or if it wasn't that, my mental sanity. And that was not a good place to be. And I wanted to have an outlet. I've always loved storytelling, so I wrote this comic that was super dark based off of my nightmares. I have recurring nightmares, which apparently is very common with people with chronic illnesses. But what came out of that is that I basically ran out of reasons to want to live. That sounds kind of dark, but if you're in pain constantly and like most of your bodily systems aren't functioning, I enjoy being a very independent person. And it's, I can't even describe, it's just like the mental turmoil it is to have to fight against yourself every day based on your situation. Between that and then just literally not doing well, I just held on to this comic, making it week by week, saying if I were to not be here, these people would be left wondering what this story was. Even if they didn't care that much, I wanted to contribute something to society before anything happened to me. I basically accepted that that was a possibility, that I wouldn't be around anymore, and that was sort of my liberation in a way. Like I found ways to live shortly after that. So I'm writing this comic every week, and then out of nowhere, like I was getting a treatment one day and I had this sudden realization, and just like visuals, entire story just unloaded itself into my brain, and that was What Sexual. I'm going to give more background on all of those things, that like specific analogies, but in order for the sake of time, I think I'm gonna have to leave that for part 2. Thank you for watching this video. I'm gonna create a series for this. As of right now, what I'm filming, I don't know what it'll be titled, so that. Again, my main intention through this is to let you know that you're not alone if you experience any of this. If you have a chronic illness or some type of depression, or you're going through some sort of struggle, I think that we all need to band together and support each other through that. It's healthy to relate to people. It's healthy to talk about things, so that is my main intention through this. As always, if you ever feel unsafe, there's hotlines you can call. I'll put them in the description. There's tons of support groups and stuff out there, whether it's like LGBT things or with chronic illness. So don't be afraid to search for others who are going through something similar as you, because you deserve it. If you like this video, please click subscribe, especially if you want to hear the next few parts. Leave some comments about anything that you'd like to talk about relating to anything I talked about in this video. Feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to respond. And I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye!